We're going to start with the Browns.
Let's do it.
Malik Jackson on Good Morning Football on the NFL Network a couple of days ago had some pretty pointed things to say about Myles Garrett's leadership / lack of leadership that he noticed during his time in Cleveland. Let's roll the clip and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Yeah, I just think you have two first round picks, guys that want to come in. For me being on different teams, I was able to understand that when you go to a new team, it's this guy's team. You have to really take a step back and understand what the hierarchy is and who says what goes, So I think that's what needed to be done. I think, Myles was a young player, so, his maybe leadership skills weren't the best at that time. But I think as he's gotten older, he understands what it takes. He's had a lot of guys around him to be able to show him what he needs to do. And I think he needs to take that bull by the horns and just lead more by example as far as in the classroom, because we all know what he can do on the field. But to be able to go in the classroom, command that respect, and tell guys what to do, I think is where he really needs to take that job.
Like in 21, like you're on that defensive line room. You have Myles Garrett, who's this incredible talent, but it's hard to make everybody else around you better, right?
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things. Some guys just don't have it when they, you know what I mean? Especially you have, say, me and get at Jadavian and Clowney. You have older guys in the room that can't take that, but the younger guys are going to respect the guys that they want to be like. And so when Myles, he can sit in the front and relax and do his thing, but when guys are looking at him, they want to do that, but then you have an older guy saying, no, you can't do that, do this. I think he just needs to be able to transition and be more of that, like, okay, I'm going to play the game and do this and do that, even though I might not want to, but I understand these guys are looking at me. And I think that's the jump he needs to take.
All right, let's go into the translator machine. What was he saying without saying it, or maybe with saying it?
I mean, he's saying it. He's saying he's not a leader.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
I didn't hear those words, but that's I heard in my translator.
It's not surprising. It's something we've talked about. Now, none of us are in the locker room, so we don't know for sure, but he was.
Yeah.
And he said he was a young player, but I believe it was the fifth year of Myles Garrett's career.
Wasn't exactly a young player. To me, a young player
it was the fifth year of his
two.
career in 2021.
That's not a young
he
player.
wasn't young. I mean, he wasn't old, but he certainly wasn't young.
He was approaching his prime. I wouldn't describe him as a young player.
My thoughts on leadership, again, I didn't play sports at a high level, so the highest I played was high school. So maybe I'm wrong about this. You guys tell me. I think when it comes to leadership, it can take time to develop leadership, but you don't all of a sudden become a leader in year 7. I don't see that. Like, I know for a fact that when Eli Manning was a rookie on the Giants, he was not a leader. They had veterans there, Tiki Barber and guys like that, right? And it took Eli some time to develop his leadership. That quality was there, but he had to develop it. Myles Garrett, I don't think, has ever had that quality. And I don't see, Malik Jackson says, well, it's something he's got to take the next. I just don't think is it year 7 for him?
Yeah.
I don't think in year 7 he's all of a sudden going to become a leader. I just don't see it. And it's disappointing, but I don't think every great player has to be a leader.
That's true.
You'd rather
I agree with a lot of what you just said. I'll start with the Eli Manning thing. I thought Eli's situation, he was smart enough to understand I'm a rookie quarterback coming in with a huge contract and a lot of expectations, legacy expectations. I'm going to lay in the weeds and watch others lead. And when I feel that this is more my team, I'll step forward. I thought the way he navigated that was the way a player should.
Yes.
The guys that come in rookie season, big-chested, screaming, yelling, trying to own the team, they're doing themselves a disservice, at least what I've seen in my history. Myles, leaders are born. Leaders are born. Period. End of it.
Yeah.
They're not. They don't wake up in season 7 and say, you know what, I'm going to be a leader today.
Right. No.
It's either baked into your DNA or it's not.
That's right.
And it plain and simply is not part of Myles Garrett's makeup.
Yeah, I agree.
And does it suck? Yeah. You want your best player to be your leader. Ray Lewis, Tom Brady. You want those guys. Drew Brees was another one.
Yeah.
You want those guys to be the vocal leader because their play is already speaking volumes for what they want everybody else to do.
Yeah.
The troubling thing for me, and I want you guys to add it to what your thoughts are on this. My takeaway from that was that Myles Garrett doesn't take the classroom side of it seriously. And that, to me, can be a huge issue, and here's why. I've heard all the greats on both sides of the ball say that God-given ability and desire will get you so far. It's the guys that have the God-given ability, the desire, and then the work ethic, like a Peyton Manning, to study harder than everybody else in the game to go to the elite great level. And I have watched Myles Garrett, and as good as he has been, this is going to sound like a diss, as good as he has been, there's still something missing for me. I know he can be better. I know he can be elite. He can be one of the best that's ever played that position. But after hearing Malik, to me, my takeaway is if he doesn't have that classroom element, that study element, two things happen. One, it keeps him from being elite. Two, your best player is now setting the tone for the other 52 guys on how they can act in the classroom.
Especially in that defensive line.
Especially on the defensive line group.
Yeah.
So that's troubling to me.
Yes.
I did a little digging around, and see Malik Jackson. He not gonna come out and say it, but I did a little bit of asking, and what he's alluding to in the classroom is just falling asleep in class, just falling asleep in meetings. That's what it is.
Okay, that's unacceptable, G.
So
am I wrong?
Well, here's the thing. I heard Jimmy Johnson say this one time. He said if Michael Irvin falls asleep in the class, I'm gonna tap that rookie and tell him, could you wake Michael Irvin up? If it happens to be somebody else, it happens to be the rookie, I'm gonna tell Michael Irvin to tell him to get out of the class and he's gonna get cut. The reality is, everybody on the football team, we listen to the stories, it's a different pecking order. And what Malik Jackson said, basically, if you read between the lines, was, look, when you come in, Jadeveon Clowney and me, we different. We veterans. We ain't, it is what it is. We're not going to look up to him because we veterans. But some of the younger guys may look up and say, look at Myles Garrett, he's snoozing over there, or he's not paying attention or whatever the case may be, and he's still getting 18, 16, 17, 18 sacks. They think, maybe I can get them sacks. And they tell him, nah, bro, you're not that good. See, like, there's a level to it, right? Like, there's levels. I look at leadership a little differently, right? You do need leaders, but as I watch and as I look, McNuggets talked about a show, the quarterback show on
Netflix.
On Netflix, tremendous. Yeah. To me, I believe there's only one guy that is truly the leader, and that's the quarterback. After why, I thought.
Ever?
No, not ever. I'm saying in today's football.
Well, I mean, Ray Lewis wasn't that long ago.
But Ray Lewis is I look at them. I look at those guys. Mike Singletary used to be the middle linebackers, right?
It's a different era of football.
It's a different.
I understand that it's a different era, but I'll just say this. I don't think that much has changed from the day Ray Lewis left the game.
Well, here's the thing. They've diminished that. We talk about linebackers were the voice of the defense, the captains. They've diminished what they are in importance on the field. So you might not even be a linebacker that's playing 3 downs, right? The Singletaries of the world, the Patrick Willis. What I mean by quarterbacks is the quarterback is the guy who everybody is like, yeah, we'll follow that guy. If it's 3rd and 6 and they need to play, the quarterback affects the game.
I think I agree with most of what G says. I do think I think yes, the quarterback is the ultimate leader of the team in most cases.
Should be.
But I do think the defense has to have a leader for their group as well.
Yeah,
right. I think when you're in the locker room after the game or going into a game and you're breaking it down as a whole team, yes, in most cases it's the quarterback leading the way. But when the defense goes on the field
they need a quarterback.
And you're up by 3 points with a minute left, there's got to be a guy leading that defense saying, we got to stop this effing team right now.
Right, yes.
There has to be. It can't be the quarterback going to tell them that.
Yes. So, G. Bush, to your point, like globally as a team, the quarterback is kind of the de facto leader and the guy that everybody's looking to and the guy the media wants to hear from. Mm-hmm. But defense is on the field for half the game.
Yes, they are.
And I need a defensive leader. Yeah. I need a Ray Lewis. I need a Mike Singletary.
And the Browns,
need a guy that's going to do that.
To this point, there's new guys now. We'll see. But I think that's been one of the biggest issues with the defense is their best players on defense are not those type of guys.
You're right.
Yeah, so I look at it too, like from a standpoint of, are you a leader? Can you make up leadership qualities? Can you just I think about it in the way I started thinking about it differently was this. Like when I saw The Last Dance and I saw Michael Jordan, and you talk about the guys that are the top of the food chain, right? The greatest to ever do it. Those players obviously were the leaders, but they did things that were like crazy to me. Like, okay, Michael Jordan says, he tells, if Jordan today goes and tells Dennis Rodman, go to Vegas for 2 weeks during the season, that would be looked at as crazy.
I know. That is a different time.
Well, there was a whole book, though, written about Jordan rules.
The rules, right?
And I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. If there was one exception to the star being the leader, not just on the court or field, but in the locker room and with the example, it's Michael Jordan. I believe that. I haven't seen another renegade leader like Mike.
Or you look
But was Mike falling asleep in meetings? I mean, I don't know.
I've never heard stories of that.
But if Michael Jordan, like, think about it, what is more egregious?
He showed up hungover.
Yeah, he showed up gambling all night. Like, so it would be like, say for instance, it would be Myles Garrett and he takes, just say somebody like David Njoku. He says, "Hey David, I mean, we're gonna go to Vegas for about a week. We'll fly back and forth. We ain't even gonna be in the city though.
Right.
But we'll meet them at the game." People would go, they would be like,
you know what?
Are you serious?
You can only get away with that stuff when you win. Like Tom Brady can do whatever the hell he wants because he won.
Sure.
Same thing with Jordan. Myles Garrett hasn't won anything.
That's it.
That's Right.
So the caveat is this: when you win, that gives you a blanket to carte blanche.
Remember when everybody got worked up when Odell and the Giants players were on the boat? Mm-hmm. And then they lost the playoff game for the Packers, I think?
Yep.
If they had won, nobody would have said anything.
No.
Nobody would have cared. But the bottom line is, we could talk about whatever we want with Myles Garrett. There's no denying that him falling asleep in meetings is unacceptable, and he could be even better. He could have even more impact. As good as he is, and we all know he's one of the best defensive linemen in the league, he should be the absolute best, unquestioned, and he's not
We
because
haven't
of
even
that.
brought up the car accident last year, which hurt his team.
Yeah, absolutely.
That hurt his team, and it was
Right.
through his own recklessness
Yes.
that caused that. I think in large part, I don't want to say he's been given a pass because we were critical over that.
Yeah.
And I think some of the media was critical about that. I think to me the takeaway is this, and we'll transition to our next question in this topic because this is where I think the rubber meets the road. Mikey astutely put the question down here, can the Browns reach their full potential, whatever that is?
Yeah.
Obviously the goal every year is the Super Bowl, but whatever their full potential is, can they ever get there without Myles Garrett being a full-fledged leader?
I think they can, but somebody else has to become that leader on the defense. I don't think they can reach their full potential without having a strong leader on defense.
Right.
I don't think it has to be Myles Garrett. I don't. But it has to be somebody, and right now I'm not sure who that is.
I think it does have to be Myles Garrett.
Okay.
Because I don't know who else it's going to be.
I don't know.
They don't have another player on this defensive roster that is going to be considered an all-time elite at their position.
Sometimes the reality is leadership is something that you have. Leadership is something you have to cultivate. Leadership is always something you have to continue to mold and shape, and that happens as the maturity process happens in the player. When you get a player that's younger, it's very difficult. To me, one of the best leaders I've ever seen in my life was Tim Tebow. And Tim Tebow was such a good leader that he had the opposite effect. People used to think he was phony. Sure. People used to say, you can't be that good of a person.
Right.
They would look for something. But no, Tim Tebow was about that in every single way, shape, or form. It's very rare to find people like that. And generally speaking, it's harder to find leaders who are very good. Because when you're very good and you're very talented, it comes easy to you. Like, so what's the downfall? If I'm not a leader, what's the downfall? I still produce. So it's hard for people to kind of go at you a little bit because you're going to say, well, if I'm not being a good leader, I'm still first team All-Pro and I'm the best defensive end.
But leaders, G, you know this, set examples.
Yeah.
And the term leader, if you break down what it means you're asking others to follow in your path.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for the other 52 guys on this roster who aren't among the all-time greats at their position. If they look to him and do as he does, they're never going to reach their full potential. 52 guys.
Yeah, they go.
You have a Malik Jackson looking at Myles Garrett going, damn, he's falling asleep in the meeting room. I guess I can do that and still be the best Malik Jackson I can be. For those guys to be good or great, they've got to put it all in.
I think he could. I think it's possible he could set a better example without necessarily being the leader. And if you look at some other teams, we don't know who. I was just thinking about the Bengals defense, and the Bengals defense has been pretty good the last years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not sure who the leader is.
Right.
Because they don't have one Myles Garrett. They have 6 or 7 really good players. I'm not sure who the leader is. It might be Logan Wilson.
Maybe
it
it's
might
the
be
defensive
DJ
coordinator.
Reader. It might but I don't. Even if you ask me who's the Bengals' best defensive player, I'm not sure who I would say with 100% certainty. I don't know that guy has to be the leader. But I do think Myles Garrett has to clean up this nonsense about not paying attention or falling asleep in the locker room, in the meeting rooms. That's ridiculous.
I try to bring a little context to it. To most,
yeah.
The best defensive player of all time is Lawrence Taylor.
I would say that
for me he is.
Yeah.
Or Reggie White.
And when Leroy tells the story.
Yeah.
He is hanging out with Leroy. Leroy hanging out with
doing drugs.
And he said Leroy wasn't doing no drugs. Now he said he went golfing.
Not Leroy.
Wasn't there a
I was
story
saying Lawrence
yesterday
Taylor.
where Lawrence Taylor said he didn't remember being drafted by the Giants because he had 41 beers.
Leroy.
Think about pouring 41 beers into your body.
My God.
Leroy tells this story about Bill Belichick. He says, or Bill Parcells. He says, look, I gotta go somewhere. He's like, you want to go play some golf next week? Leroy's like, what you mean play golf next week? We in the middle of camp. He said, don't worry about it. I got you. They get up. They go play all these holes of golf and then come back. And Bill Parcells taps Leroy and said, how was the doctor's visit?
Yeah.
Leroy goes, it was all right. It was all right. Lawrence Taylor done gave him the doctor's note. He done gave him the slip. And guess what? Lawrence Taylor probably went out the next week and did what Lawrence Taylor does, which was wreck game plans.
Well, you know what, though, G? I think by our own definition here, we all agree, Lawrence was the best to ever play that side of the football.
Right.
Put the jersey on.
And he had everything that he needed. He had natural instinct, unbelievable God-given ability, desire, and a motor that never turned off.
He had that killer instinct.
He did, the
that
killer
the
instinct.
great pass rushers have. And I just don't know if Myles has that, which is crazy because, statistically, if you just look at sacks, his numbers are ridiculous.
Through the roof.
I did it. Here's the thing. I did a deep dive into Myles Garrett. I did a video last week, and I went in and just to look at his all-22, right? And I just looked at his pass rush ability. And, from a technical and physical, standpoint, there's no one as good as him because it's just the fact that he's that powerful and that fast. What he's doing to these tackles that are great tackles is by far a travesty. He's destroying them. However, if you just would do this, I looked at it, he has 16, 17 sacks, right? So that's about, say he gets 18 sacks a year. If he would just give me 12 to 14 tackles for loss in the backfield in the run game, that puts him at 30 negative plays during the season.
Yeah, which
instead
is
of the 18.
That's 1.5, almost 2 a game.
That's two impactful negative plays. And those are the plays where I feel like that's where he could become. People would say, oh, it's just not the sacks.
Like Aaron Donald.
Yes, he's making.
And quite honestly, T.J. Watt, we've talked about T.J. before, but when I watch the Steelers play, T.J. jumps off the screen, whether it's a pass play or a run play.
More consistently.
He is a disruptive force on every play where, what do I know? Because the PFF grade tells me I'm completely wrong. But there are times that I watch the Browns games and I have to look and see if 95's in the game.
Well, this year is going to be the most telling season because T.J. Watt has had better talent around him than Myles Garrett has.
That's a
and
fact.
this year, even though I still say we don't know who the second defensive tackle is, it's still a question mark.
Right.
However, there's no denying that there's better talent around him than we've ever seen in Cleveland on that defensive line. They have 3 good players that they've brought in.
This is the year that he's
got to
the
win defensive
player of the
MVP.
year.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is crazy. McNuggets, give me that stat, and I got one more thing after you done, and which I think you guys will love.
sometimes PFF, I know it's not the end-all, be-all, but sometimes they're in line. I know they watch this show. They actually just dropped an article in the last 4 minutes on the 2022 pass rushing grades in certain situations. And I just want to read these real quick because it highlights just how special Myles Garrett is without any of the extra stuff. Overall pass rush grade, his 93.5, first in the NFL. On 3rd and 4th downs, his 92.4 pass rush grade, first in the NFL. Cincinnati's Trey Hendrickson, second in those situations,
Wow.
Will. On no blitzes, so when you only rush 4,
Right.
93.3 PFF grade, first in the NFL.
And by the
On
way, with this
stunts-
team last year, that was most of the time.
All
yes,
the time.
on
Yeah.
stunts. So when they did something up front when Joe Woods decided to mix it up, he had a 91.8 pass rush grade, also first in the NFL. Essentially everything you could ask for, he's near the top, except fourth quarter PFF pass rush grades, he's 17th.
Wow.
That's phenomenal.
And that came out in the last 3 minutes.
17th,
PFF just
though,
dropped it.
in fourth quarter PFF pass
That's
rushing grade.
I got to say, I'm kind of shocked by
Yeah.
that.
That's terrible. I mean, not terrible, but
I mean,
he's
well-
number one on everything else.
Well, you go back and you just say.
Is that a conditioning thing?
I think it's.
No, a lot of teams ran the ball. I think it's kind of I think that might be a little
what is his
fugazi.
PFF rush D grade?
68 last year.
I mean, that's bad.
68.5 is not good. That's why I talk. I don't. You notice I don't talk about the pass rush stuff. He's not paralleled in that. I talk about the run
and that's
stuff.
why I almost feel dirty when we
Yeah.
when we get critical of Myles. I truly do feel bad about that because he's so freaking awesome. He's so
I
incredibly
know.
good.
But our expectations are him to be the best ever,
and that's
basically.
why I said before,
Yeah,
I just
which may
feel
be
like
unfair.
there's
I don't know.
something missing. Like, I'm watching him, and guys, I don't think it's beyond the pale to say he could be a Lawrence Taylor impact type player.
Yeah.
He could be Aaron Donald. I know that the numbers will tell you that it's Myles Garrett. My eyeball test.
Yeah.
Give me Aaron Donald.
But, yeah, I mean, it's not like for the last few years you keep expecting to 10, 20 years from now to say it was Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Ray Lewis, Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, like in that same group. And to me, he's not with the rest of those guys yet. I don't think it's too late, though.
I think
No, it's not.
When you look at the totality of it, when you look at those grades and you mix it up and you say, you add the fact that he gets double teamed by far more than anybody. You add the fact that he doesn't have any other defensive tackles. He was playing with USFL guys.
But wasn't that because he was double teamed by far more than anybody? But that was just because there was nobody else to block on the Browns.
I mean, he's consistently
Right.
Well,
that's part of it.
Part
Yeah,
of it.
sure.
Like Jadeveon Clowney was
But
supposed
that's
to be a
factored
guy.
in
But
to the
if
PFF.
these other
Yes.
teams that have great defensive ends had somebody else that was a threat, then that explains why they weren't double teamed as much as Myles. But they're looking at the Browns' defensive front saying, we just got to stop Myles.
If it's me, I don't care who they got on the
And
other side.
it's going to be much.
I'm still double teamed.
He won't
Right,
get,
right.
but he won't get double teamed as much this year.
I don't think he will
He's
either.
still going to get double teamed a lot,
Probably
but not
the most
as
in
much.
the league, but
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be to the point where it was last year.
I've been working. I got a 3-part series. I've been working on this Jim Schwartz thing. Like I think there's a lot of different conversations about what Jim Schwartz defense is and what Jim Schwartz defense isn't. Now, if you go back and look at it, Jim Schwartz is a team. When he was actually with the Titans, they blitzed only 8% of the time. He's not going to be blitzing. I'm going to let y'all know that right now.
I could confirm those
was
numbers.
that last year, though?
Jim Schwartz, not a heavy blitzer. He wants to get
No.
pressure with 4.
So he's not going to blitz, right? However, I will say this, and this is fascinating to me. When I was starting to look at, because I think Myles Garrett can have a record-breaking year this year. I think he can he literally break the sack record. And Jim Schwartz said something, and when I put it out, I put it in a video in greater detail. But Jim Schwartz did something I had never heard before. Traditionally, everybody has a gap assignment. Traditionally, everyone has a rush lane where you got to keep contained. Jim Schwartz actually only contains the field to one side, which is mind-blowing to me. Like, so when defensive ends line up, the first thing they usually generally teach you is the fact that you have contained so the quarterback does not get outside of you. He said, I threw that away years ago. He said, I only contain the one side of the field. And the reason I only contain the one side of the field is We've already charted where the quarterback is comfortable at. He's like, some people, we actually don't like blitzing and we don't want to rush the quarterback because all they'll do is throw hot. I actually want to put them in coverage and rush with my 4, so at least we have time to get a sack.
Right.
He said, because I could bring somebody and all they're going to do is throw hot. So I would like to give them time to develop with my front 4. And he said, my right defensive end, my best defensive end, I want to give him the ability to have what we call a two-way go. I want him to be able to go inside, outside, up the field, down the field, whatever he wants to do. And he does not have
with the intent of keeping contained.
No.
So
he has
forget
no
that.
No contain. He has because
if he comes inside, as you know, that side's wide open.
So then this is crazy.
So you're saying, okay, play into his weakness.
He said, all right, well, now that the quarterback is rolling to that way, he says, I've already charted which way they roll and which consistent way.
And most right-handed throwers can't roll that way.
They'll roll and throw that way.
Right.
He said if he only completed 20% of his passes rolling right as a right-handed quarterback,
then let him go.
Why do I need to?
Right, let him go.
So there's probably some quarterbacks that don't fit that bill.
Yes.
But many of them do.
Baker was actually a guy who could roll left and throw right. It's not an easy throw to make.
No, and he said, well, and he just basically said, what we used to do is we used to bait guys because we used to give them that whole side of the field, and now the quarterback, if he's like, oh, I got room out here, now I'm going to roll and throw.
It's almost like in basketball when a guy has no left hand.
Yeah, right.
Give him that.
Yeah. But whatever, he's not going to hurt you right there.
By the way, in this same vein, I don't know did you see this? Have you watched this quarterback show yet?
I haven't. It's on my list.
You're going to love it. Have you seen the second episode yet?
Yes.
I have not.
Okay. So the stuff about they were interviewing Patrick Mahomes' trainer, and he was talking about working out his spine and his neck. Like, who would think spine and maybe neck?
So he can twist and throw.
He says the reason Patrick Mahomes is so crazy where he'll be facing this way and throw it this way more than any other quarterback is because of his spine and neck flexibility.
Unbelievable.
And I wouldn't even think of that.
But it is next level stuff.
And that's why he can do things that you're like, how can he do that?
Right.
Well, because he can be looking this way and see that way in his peripheral vision better than most people.
And make the throw.
Yes.
And
remember, Patrick Mahomes was a big baseball player. His dad played baseball.
Yeah.
And he didn't even play quarterback. I didn't know this until his junior year in high school.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he has that baseball mentality of some of these crazy wild throws. I don't know. It's amazing.
It is something fascinating that I've never really thought about, but he is the guy, if you were to say, okay, how do you explain Patrick Mahomes? He's the guy that will make a throw from any foot position that he has.
Right.
He can be completely facing left and go this way.
Right.
And do it with incredible accuracy like he's practiced.
And they tell you that was the cardinal sin. You could never
throw across your body.
Serious?
Never, square your shoulders.
He can do whatever he wants.
Everybody was square your shoulders. Where's your target? Your shoulders should indicate it. With him, he's an anomaly.
He said, somebody was telling me, you can tell he plays baseball because it's usually in baseball you have to throw from different platforms and angles to get it. And he said, we always say if your lead foot isn't where it's going, your shoulder and your arms are out of mechanics, the ball's going to sail on you or you're going to be inaccurate. No.
Not with him.
Not with him.
Have you guys noticed his influence? I'm starting to see, I saw Burrow do it a couple times last year. I'm seeing more and more quarterbacks that are able to make those throws, those Mahomes throws.
Yeah.
And I think that's his influence on the game.
No doubt.
They're looking at it.
Yeah.
They're working on it. The neck and spine flexibility tip.
Definitely.
Everybody's going to put that on their rotation of things to do.
And the other good quarterbacks, you'll see them start doing more and more of it probably.
Sure. Yeah, why not? It
but
works.
nobody's as good as him.
And,
He's the first.
It's just ridiculous.
It's so crazy because guys like Jim Schwartz literally say, well, we don't want him to throw the ball quick. We don't want – because if he throws it quick, that's a touchdown today, now.
Yeah.
We want him to give us a couple of those.
Yeah.
Can we get a few of those?
I get the feeling, I haven't read as much as you have, but what I've learned about Schwartz, most of it's been from you on this show. I think your knowledge of his background and his ideology has been fantastic. To me, it seems like he's playing chess while a lot of the other guys are still playing checkers.
Yes,
and baiting a guy to go to his weakness, that's something that a lot of
really
coordinators
smart.
don't do, but it's brilliant if you think
It
about it.
really is smart.
It is.
He's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I can't wait I think so at the end of the year, when we sit here after week 17, we're going to ask the question, which person, not player, which person in the Browns organization had the most positive impact on the preceding season. I think it's going to be
Oh,
him.
he'll be certainly in the conversation.
I
It's
hope
very
so.
likely.
I hope so. And that graphic that you had up, Mike, it was up for just a little bit. If we could go back to that, the one that showed Schwartz's inherited defense,
Right.
and then their performance after he was there for year one. Now, I know
3 of the
Detroit,
4 were
Yeah,
significantly.
Detroit didn't budge, but if you remember, that Detroit team he inherited was all-time bad.
Right.
They had nothing on that side of the ball. But look what he's done in the other places. He has significantly improved their defense. And if that happens here, I think you're looking at a playoff season at worst,
Well,
and a potential playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, if they're significantly improved on defense and Watson plays like we know he's capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Sky's
no
the
excuse
limit.
for them not to
Sky's
make the
the limit.
playoffs. Yeah.